to answer some questions?
Of course.
Anyone got a question? If you just wait for our friend to come on with the microphone.
Hi, my name's Ty. Thank you so much for the talk. It was great to hear about your experiences making a game. I actually have two questions. So my first question is, I have a copy of the game. Is it possible for you to sign it? And my second question is, what's been the most, I don't know, like valuable or interesting feedback that you've got from people who have played the game since in the 25 years, maybe about, I don't know, bringing communities together, maybe starting a career in video games, like what has kind of been the most interesting piece of feedback you've got?
Valuable feedback.
I mean, I think because I've got that Dr. Doak character in the game.
Have you?
Yeah, yeah. I stuck my name in.
Yeah.
One of the great things about having worked on GoldenEye, and particularly as I've got older, is that when you meet people who've played it, it's always, you meet people who you do not know at all, and the only interaction you have with them is that thing that you made them happy, and they come and they say, that made me happy. And it's just like, it's just a wonderful thing to have been able to do. And with the Dr. Doak character, what I often get is people say, oh yeah, you're Dr. And they say, well, you know, I'm sorry I shot you. And then you're going to go, well, that's all right. So it's kind of like, it's always this Catholic thing of absolving people for shooting you. That thing you've been worrying about, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I want to underline that by saying my favourite piece of fan art of GoldenEye is just like 4 kids in a bedroom with 4 controllers. You know, great friends, having a great time playing GoldenEye.
Yeah, I mean, GoldenEye for me has opened up a lot of doors, even though I'm not in video games anymore. I mean, it got me a flat, which was great, because the guy renting it really liked GoldenEye, and it was like, oh, you play video games, do you? Well, do you know which one I did when I was younger? So yeah, I have milked it, absolutely.
You should.
And yeah, of course, we'll be doing some signs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have we got a rate sorted out?
It's negotiable.
The only time you hear people in the game is the sound effects of the deaths, and that's one of the most memorable parts of the game is not just the grandiose animations of dying, but the sound effects and the noise that they make. Was that source? Was that acted out in Rareware? How did that work out?
Oh, it would have been in-house, wouldn't it?
Well, there's a corridor that went along the side of all the rooms in the stable. And Graham put a lot of blankets over to dampen down the sound. And then he got every person on the team to go in, up to the microphone, and make various sounds like, and he recorded all of them. I think everybody on the team did this.
Yeah.
Myself included. And then he worked his magic and used the ones that were good.
I think there's also, I think it plays them in sequence as well, doesn't it? I think the sequence is predictable. So some people can play it and make the right sound. And I think I saw that thing online with someone that they used to play in the playground with their friends, and they would do, that was the thing that you'd shoot each other, but you would make the next correct GoldenEye.
Or a muffin Trafalgar, we did all of that. Thank you, and sorry I shot you.
It's okay, it's okay. Absolve him. This is so much better. I was at E3 one time, and I was just leaving this restaurant with a friend, and someone yelled at me, "I've shot you so many times!" It's like, I didn't understand what the context was. That's so much nicer, your phrasing.
Yeah, hi, thanks for a great talk. There's a online speedrunning community called The Elite, and I think it's quite amazing what the top players have been able to accomplish in terms of completing the missions as fast as possible. So my question is, have you paid any attention to these type of speedruns, and do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I followed it quite closely for a while. So particularly a couple of, the thing that drew my attention to it was the Australian guy when he did the dam. It was like 24 seconds. I can't remember. I don't know the numbers. So 52.
I think you're fine.
50. And then I watched a whole bunch of what's the guy, Goose, the Canadian guy? Yeah, so a lot of his kind of like fireside chats about it and stuff and things. And I did actually, I had a long Zoom conversation with him, which was really interesting because there were things about, I mean, the techniques are very peculiar in GoldenEye, so particularly the ones around going to the watch and changing weapons at particular times because of the compressed data coming off the ROM. You can generate performance hits on the frame rate, and then it can make you do strange things. But it's weird, but that you know, we put the level timing. I can't even remember when we put the times in. It was kind of just, it may even have been a mechanism for the cheats, that may have been the way it came about. It's like, well, we want to put some cheats in, so we'll do this. And it probably was one of the first games that was not a racing game that was actively recording the times on your save. So it kind of, it pointed towards speedrunning. And then GoldenEye has that thing where, because the recorded times are quantized, you have all these speculative videos saying, well, the record is X, but I know we could do X minus 1 because this person has done this part of the run in this amount of time and this amount of time. So if those two things could be put together. But I think, what's the name of the chap in Australia? Carl Jones. Because he's done there's one of his videos which is about it's about speedrunning the frigate. And the frigate has this thing in it, well, I'm sure most of you know, where you release the hostages, they run to a random location. And so I set it up, so I can remember setting all of that up. And he's basically, through observation of trying to make it do faster and faster speed runs, this video basically talks about the setup of the level in a way that he's almost read the code, because he just kind of goes, well, if you do this, this, and this, and these characters go that way. And then there's another thing GoldenEye does, which is when characters are off screen, because rendering was rendering was a big performance hit, but also doing the transformations for the bone animations. So it's always trying to not draw things. So the minute a character goes off screen, it just goes, well, their average speed is this, and they're going between here and here. And he has there's part of his
manipulate
this
that.
part of his speed run is you release these guys and then you look over here, which means that this thing's going to happen. It's just insane, and just, I mean, the depth and the insight into it that community is probably the longest running speedrunning community on the net, isn't it? So.
I don't really like discussing things with them because it always turns out that they're right. So, a couple of times on Twitter I've had conversations where I say, no, I think it works like this. Each time they're right. They understand the game so much better than I think any of us ever will.
Hi there. Basically, I wanted to ask, was it always going to be a first-person shooter, or was there any point, was it going to be like third-person? Like, was it going to change perspective?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It was never going to be third-person, but it certainly could have been a first-person on rails. I mean, if they'd come down and really chopped the deadline, if they'd really insisted on the deadline, then we just would have brought it in as an on-rail shooter. That could have happened, but luckily they gave us enough, months.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I mainly just wanted to ask if you were able to reveal any information about the development of the remaster that's available through there, or it's like the circumstances under which it was why it couldn't be released, and if anything's changed since then, that kind of thing.
It
How
can
far
be-
along is it in development? So how completion-wise?
Did you say music?
Sorry?
The remaster.
The remaster. So the Xbox 360
Sure.
version.
It couldn't be released for reasons of intellectual property because there's basically 4 corporations that feel that they own a slice of GoldenEye, and they have other interests, like whatever James Bond films come out latterly and whatever James Bond video games have come out latterly to support that movie. So, they're not strongly incentivized to allow any kind of remake of GoldenEye to happen. If that was to happen, it would have to be under different conditions. As for the other parts of your question, I don't know.
Yeah, we know nothing about it because it's out of our hands. But I mean, there's a lot of rumor that XBLA one might, the achievements and stuff appearing on the Xbox Game Pass stuff and things. But who knows? Who knows? But I think the thing about everyone who's wanted to play that has probably had an opportunity to play it because it's easy to get hold of.
You were saying, of course, that at the time you had to write your own engine, which must have been very frustrating, but also very rewarding. Whereas now, of course, we have SDKs and APIs and all that kind of stuff, but you can get onto the game mechanics much more quickly. Do you think programming is better now or then? And secondly, were there any sort of really disgusting, nasty engineering hacks that you're particularly proud of just to get something to work really, really fast and efficiently?
There's quite a lot to think about with both these questions. The old days were better. Okay, so that's that taken care of. What's the other hacks? I don't know. There's always a bunch of hacks in there. I think you get to a stage of desperation in a project where you know that it just kind of actually doesn't matter if you make a shambolic solution because it's never going to be revised. The deadline is definitely a real deadline. There's no time to revise your solution again, so it's definitely, that's the end of the story. So there were some things like that. I mean, like the rendering in, in what's it called? Control? Did we call it Control?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the rendering of the room in Control, it has all these glass windows, and Anyway, that was a hack. The software for that, I just rewrote it in a stupor 3 times until it mostly worked. And then set some of the rooms to render all the time.
Yeah, because
like
a problem with that is that all of those portals, those doorways I was talking about, one of the things that you don't want with a portal is that you don't want a whole bunch of them almost edge onto each other so that you can trace a line of rendering that is nearly going back on yourself.
It's basically, you've got all this tooling and you've got this beautiful solution for problems that don't occur on this level. And you're trying to graunch your mindset, your tooling, into this new problem area, and it doesn't really work. And it's like, well, what do you do? Think of a nice, clean, new solution? Actually, that sounds like too much work. So I'm just going to fudge it. But mostly I think the code on GoldenEye was pretty clean. I mean, there were a lot of little hacks, and obviously there's lots of sleight of hand and, that kind of thing. Things that you just hope you can get away with, but the code was pretty clean.
One of the things, it's not really a hack, but one of the things that I think made the game richer is that all of the way Martin did all of the site tracing and movement, it's all done in 2D. So the game basically makes a mesh, and that's everything's done on that. So that's how guards decide they can see you or move to a place or shoot. And it has unintended consequences, like if someone can't move directly to where you are in a straight line, then they assume that effectively they can't see you. So on the dam level, there are some guys patrolling on the top of the little towers, and you can see them from a very long way away, and you've got your sniper rifle and stuff and things. But although they, in the real world, they could see you, in the game world, they can't see you. So it's wrong, but it's empowering for the player, and it makes that level work. You know, and it's because the players, again, it's almost down to that, a player's interpretation of random AI is that they see intent in it. So you're looking at that and thinking, oh, he just hasn't noticed me. I must be being very sneaky. And it's a really, you know, and at that level, it's perfect at that level, because that level has, again, the sniper rifle and that, you know, that's another innovation. I mean, I think the only other game that had a sniper rifle at about that time was MDK, the David Perry game. And, you know, it's just, the idea that someone would make a shooter without a sniper rifle now is just like, no, it's there. It's a basic toolkit thing. But in that level, we had just the happenstance that, okay, well, Mark's going, well, you know, we could change the field of view on the camera, so you'd like zoom in. And they're going, oh, okay, well, suddenly, yeah, the fact that we've made this thing that's a mile long makes sense. Well done, us. But you know,
we certainly had a lot of parts that, like, you had all these levels we'd made, and we had all these weapons we'd made, and we had all these characters we'd made, and then it was like, this fits with this. That's good. And so it might look like there was some kind of grand plan, but really the only grand plan was having enough stuff.
Hi. So you mentioned that you weren't anticipating success as a result of all the hard work you put into the game. But when that success came, what were the kind of consequences for you kind of personally or as a team as a result of the game you've done?
I don't know. 10 minutes of happiness?
No, we got again. I mean, we were already in a privileged position because we were getting to make games on the N64. I mean, the amount of kit that was needed to do that. You know, I mean, I imagine at the time there were probably only, you know, I don't know, less than 50 teams around the world, I suppose, making stuff.
I don't think that many with that level of resource.
Yeah, certainly with the resource we had. But then we got to do Perfect Dark. I mean, obviously I didn't finish Perfect Dark, but you know, we were allowed to make our own thing. I remember, I mean, there are other friends at Rare, like particularly like Chris Seaver, just saying, you got. He'd always wanted to make a sci-fi game, and then because we made a shooter that did well. It's like, well, you're allowed to. Oh, well, let's make a sci-fi one. He's going, how come those guys get to just make up what they're doing next? So that was really good. And seeing it in shop was amazing. I mean, it's just, yeah, that whole, I remember going back to visit my mum and dad in Belfast, and just seeing them. It's like you'd be going out, you know, just going into town or going around the shopping centre or something, and they'd almost be like dragging you into the. But just, you know, having, I guess, you know, again, it's a generational thing, I suppose, but having grown up, like the Spectrum games, for instance. I mean, you know, my brother and I used to get up on Saturday morning and sit on the bus to go into Belfast, to go around all of the shops to see if they had the game that had come out that day. You know, and then you'd sit with a cassette on the bus on the way home, looking through the manual and stuff and things. I mean, we used to joke that sometimes, for some games, that was the most fun you ever had. But you know, but that was, you know, that was.
I should tell the story of the box that we sellotaped together.
Yeah, we haven't got that picture. There's a picture when we. I guess that was fairly late in development. It felt late, yeah. But it wasn't that, because it was when we were still taking the pictures. So in 7IOB, on the monitors, there's a couple of pictures in the monitors. There's one of me doing this with I've got a stupid Russian hat on and a big heavy raincoat. And Carl's yelling, and then there's a weird thing of Mark skateboarding. He's not skateboarding. He was doing like a John Cleese silly walk or something.
Yeah, but that was the closest he would let me get him into the game. So I put him on a skateboard. I animated the whole thing in the end.
So we had all these. we all brought some props into work to take pictures because someone brought that hat in and I had the. And Martin had a kind of babushka black.
Yeah, it's actually a lady's hat.
But
it looked like it might be a Russian guy's hat.
And there's a picture. We had been sent the CMYK kind of like proof of the box. For some reason they sent it to us. I mean, we weren't going to do anything with it other than go, ooh, it's exciting.
Yeah, they sent it to us for approval, I guess. Are you happy with the box art? It's like, it's got explosions
his gun makes it look like it's got a really wide hair. We should have said. We should have said. But so we were so excited because that was you kind of like going, they're actually going to make this, aren't they? That's what this means. So we printed it out, and it was quite exciting printing something out in colour those days. That's a whole other story, but it wasn't trivial. And cut it all out, and folded it, and glued it, and sellotaped it all together. And then there's a picture of us with Martin. Are you handing it to me or whatever? We're doing like a kind of like, we're just outside the door of the stable of the block we were in, doing this kind of Checkpoint Charlie handover where I'm dressed in this kind of like, Soviet uniform and Martin's handing me this box. But that's kind of.
But it was a team morale exercise.
Yeah, it was like,
look, one day it will be in a cartridge. It will be in a box like this.
Yeah.
I think I've got time for one more. A final question.
Hi. So you spoke about how you cut the bonds because of licensing and whatnot. Was there anything else that you had to cut from the game or never made it in the game past like the planning stage that you almost regret or wish was in today?
I think I remembered earlier again, particularly talking about Mark, if you mentioned something to Mark as being we could maybe do this, he would do it or try and do it. So there were two things that truck in the dam. I think Duncan modelled the interior of the cab, and Mark was going, "Oh, well, I'll sort that out. I'll be able to drive it." I was going, so he had at one point there was a slightly drivable version of it. At which point we kind of like going, right, this is just what you can drive it, but you can drive it from there to there, and it's just, and then what happens when you're in it and they shoot at you? It's just all those, it's like all those game development things, and then there's a weird the start of Streets, isn't it? Because Streets is always, again, I was saying, it was like we're always thinking we're going to have to cut this because it's not really any. It was a weird thing, Streets, because the iconic image from the film is the tank driving through the streets of St. Petersburg, that big chase. But obviously we don't really have a tank. We've got the kind of like, we used to laugh, it's like you're pretending you're a tank. But Oromov is supposed to have been driven off in his car. So that for a while there was a car that drove off at the start of it.
Yeah.
But it went wrong. It was on a spline and it went wrong. Too much trouble. It was just too much trouble. It's like it's the only time you see a vehicle driving that you're not in it. Well, there was the one at the start, but it's going slower or something. But there were just there's a load of little things like that where you just. As Martin was saying, it's like, sometimes you just knuckle down and go, well, we will make this work because we have to make it work. And then there's sometimes, well, actually, it's just throwing up so many special cases. It's, nobody's going to think it's missing if it's not there.
If you've got three guys and they sit down, and they look at this 1/4 implemented feature and they're all shaking their heads, it's like... There's no great shame to it. I mean, mostly everything we could possibly wanted to get in there was in there.
Yeah. The weird thing about those things is where you have something like that and there's some kind of trace of it in the game, it then just becomes
a mythical thing.
It becomes
like
the island.
The thing on the other side of the dam. Yeah,
the island on the dam. It's like, but just imagine if you could go over there. What delights are over there on that island? Listen, mate, it's like 50 polys and there's no back faces on them.
It's a tease, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tease. Yeah. Yeah, so I wish I hadn't looked behind the curtain.
I guess it was accidental, but it's really a good thing, I believe.
But then you've got the weird things like the 4 bonds, where it's like saying, yeah, really was there.
Playground involved, people talk about it, but you can't find them in the game. So it's obviously stemmed from somewhere. Someone knew about it, but thought it was a lie.
And that,
years later, you find out, oh no, it wasn't there, but you have to hack the game.
and that's also, I mean, that's also a thing that's lost. I mean, that whole culture of playground rumours and stuff, because now it's like, oh, do you have 4 bonds of gold now? Yeah.
All right, nice. Well, I'd just like to once more thank you all for coming. It's been absolutely brilliant and a dream come true for me. I'm sure for a lot of these people here. And thanks to all of you. And one more final round of applause for our wonderful guests.